All right, it looks like we can get started. So welcome everybody. We're so excited that you're joining us today, whether it's the morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you may be in the world. We're excited to have you with us to learn a little bit more about Northwestern. So here's our game plan for today. First, we're going to go through a quick round of introductions just so you can place faces to names as we get questions answered. Then I'll be giving you a brief overview of Northwestern University as a whole. And then finally, you'll get what you came for, which is our student panel. And you're going to be hearing our student panelists answering some of your questions today. So to kick off introductions, my name is Hannah Preston, and I'm a graduate admissions counselor here in the Office of Undergrad Admissions at Northwestern. I'm currently enrolled in the graduate program for higher education administration and policy in the School of Education and Social Policy. And I am originally from Jacksonville, Illinois. So next, I'll go ahead and hand it off to Patryk.
Hi, everybody. My name is Patryk. I am a current RTVF and economics senior here at Northwestern, also working at the admissions office as a senior admissions counselor. Besides that, I am also on Studio 22, which is Northwestern's largest film board, and I am originally from Mount Prospect, Illinois, which is just a northwest suburb of Chicago. And I can hop it off to Andy.
Hi, everyone. My name is Andy Hartman. I'm a sophomore theater major and dance minor with the Acting for Screen module. I use he, him, his pronouns. I'm originally from New York City. And one fun fact about me is that I am a member of the Dolphin Show, which is the largest student-produced musical in the country that happens every year on Northwestern's campus. And I'll pass it along to Maeve.
Hi, I'm Maeve. I'm a third year from LA. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm a statistics, mathematical methods, and the social sciences, which is a mouthful, and major, and a CS computer science minor. And something fun I do on campus is that I'm a part of our a consulting club here on campus called CASE. And I'll popcorn it over to Janea.
Hi everyone, I'm Janea. I'm a third year from Detroit. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm studying journalism and biological anthropology. And one of the things that I do on campus is I'm a booking agent for A&O Productions, and we host concerts when they happen, and lots of speaking events. And I will pass it over to Vishal.
Hi everyone, my name is Vishal. I am a third year math, CS, and stats major in McCormick School of Engineering. I'm originally from Hong Kong, and something fun I do on campus is I'm involved in IEEE, which is like this engineering club on campus, and you do a lot of cool projects through the year.
All right. Thanks so much, everybody. And thank you to our audience for being here too. So just a note for our audience, if you have any questions that you would like to hear answered today, feel free to pop it in the chat below. And our admission staff will be helping to answer those questions as we go. So, but first, before we get to questions, I'd like to kick us off by telling you a little bit more about Northwestern as a whole. And there's no better place to start than our location. So here in the admissions office, we like to say that there are three different aspects to our location that make Northwestern special. First is our campus. So our campus is located in the first suburb north of Chicago in Evanston, Illinois. It's right in Lake Michigan. And as a small town girl like myself, I absolutely love campus because it's a nice bubble away from the hustle and bustle of the urban and suburban areas surrounding Chicago. So after a long day of class and work, campus is an excellent place to kick back and relax with your friends, throw a Frisbee, read a book on the Lakeville, and just have some fun. And the next part to that is Evanston. So Evanston truly is the quintessential college town. The community is very involved in Northwestern athletics, academics, every aspect of Northwestern. You can really see purple pride in all parts of Evanston's community. Also, downtown Evanston is just a short walk away from Evanston's campus, and it's an excellent place for nightlife. If you're interested in restaurants, I'm a full believer that there's no better place to get an Instagrammable bite to eat than at downtown Evanston. And then you have the Chicago and right in your backyard. And as a college student, having Chicago at your disposal is truly a valuable resource. Whether that's getting an internship or conducting research or just having something fun to do on the weekends, having Chicago at your disposal means that you have virtually limitless opportunities. Go to a Cubs or a Bears or Sox game, go to one of the more touristy locations like Navy Pier or one of Chicago's many museums. Or my personal favorite activity is to explore one of the less touristy neighborhoods in search of my next favorite coffee shop. So while all your classes as an undergrad will be located on Evanston's main campus, there is a Northwestern campus in downtown Chicago, which houses the medical and law schools. And what that means for you as a potential undergrad is you have access to a free campus shuttle between those two places, which will take you for free and with Wi-Fi. To downtown Chicago. So whether you're commuting for an internship or research, or you just want to go spend some time downtown with your friends, that's a great option. And it takes 45 minutes to get there and drops you off right next to the Mag Mile. And also, if you're not too interested in the intercampus shuttle, there are also two other transportation options, including the L, which is the elevated train, and the Metra. And both of those train systems will take you pretty much anywhere you'd like to go in the Chicagoland area. And both of those stops are pretty close to Evanston's downtown campus. So next, let's transition to academics. So overall at Northwestern, there are 6 undergraduate schools. First is the School of Communication, which is home to majors like theater and dance and our popular radio, television, and film major. The professors who teach in this school are really industry-leading professionals in their fields. So if you're looking for mentorship, if you're looking for some guidance on a personal project you'd like to work on, or you just want to learn more about those fields, this is an excellent place to do that. Also, just an FYI, the theater program does not require an addition. That's a question we get pretty often here in the admissions office. Next is the Beanan School of Music, which is a conservatory-style music school with a liberal arts approach. And what that means for you is you get a full music education, as well as being able to explore any other academic interests you might have. An addition is required to get into the majors within this school. Next, we have the Northwestern McCormick School of Engineering and Applied Science, which prides itself on taking a whole brain approach to educating their students. So that means students graduate both as well-trained engineers, but as creative problem solvers as well. A fun fact I love about the school is that it houses 3 times the national average of female faculty, which is pretty cool. Then there's the Medill School of Journalism, Media, and Integrated Marketing Communication, which is a mouthful. We like to say that that's the school with the longest name, but the fewest number of majors, and that's just one, which is journalism. Northwestern's journalism program really focuses on giving their students a hands-on approach to their education. So you're going to be graduating into the journalism field with a full education. And part of that hands-on education is a residency program in your 3rd or 4th year of study. And in that residency program, you can cover close to home issues in Evanston or Chicago, or you can travel across the country or even around the world to study the things you want to. Then we have the School of Education and Social Policy, which we lovingly call CESP here at Northwestern. And students in this school really are the change makers. If you want to create change in some level, whether that's on a small scale, such as in a classroom, or on a large scale, like in government, that can be a great place to start that. And another fun fact about this school is that it is the most transferred into school of all Northwestern's undergraduate schools. About 50 students in each class start out in CESP, but by the time that same class graduates, that number is closer to 200. And then finally, we have the Weinberg College of Arts and Sciences, which is our largest undergraduate school. It houses about 50% of the student population. And Weinberg is home to various natural sciences, social sciences, and humanities degrees. So that's a lot of information and a lot of different options you may have, and that may sound very overwhelming, but it's important to keep in mind that no matter which school you start out in or whatever major you choose, you have access to all the schools and all the classes within the schools as you're going through Northwestern. So no matter which school you end up in, you're going to have a tremendous amount of academic flexibility, and that's a main reason why about 70% of our students study more than one area through adding a second major or a minor or a certificate to their study program. That is pretty unique in itself, but there is an even more unique difference to academics at Northwestern, and that is that we function on the quarter system rather than the semester system. So basically what the quarter system is it's just the academic year divided evenly into 4 10-week quarters, one for each season. Most students don't take classes in the summer. You certainly don't have to, but you can. That means you also have time to explore internships, research opportunities, or you can just go home and spend time with your family over the summer. So what that means for you is the bulk of your academic year is made up of this trimester kind of function. So it's the fall, winter, and spring. And that means you have one additional, compared to a semester system, you have one additional term to work through your academics. And that's also a factor of why so many Northwestern students choose to study multiple areas. And then finally, I want to touch a little bit on the admissions process and financial aid. So we accept the common application as well as the coalition application, and both versions of our applications open on August 1st of every year, and both can be used to apply to multiple universities. So you can just fill out all your information at once and submit them to as many universities as you like. More important probably to you are the deadlines for those applications. So there at Northwestern, there are two, and the first is early decision. Early decision applications are due on November 1st of each year. And if you aren't familiar with early decision, basically what that means is that if you apply to early decision and you get in, you're under a binding agreement to come to Northwestern for your college education. So if you know for a fact that Northwestern is the place for you, you've been bleeding purple since day one, Wildcat Pride, yeah, this is where you want to be. Early decision could be an excellent choice for you. However, if you're a little more up in the air about what school might be a good fit, if you want a little more flexibility when you're searching for schools, especially in this remote environment, I know that can be really important. Our regular decision deadline is just as important, and it also can be a great option. So if you apply for early decision, you'll hear back by mid-December. And if you apply during the regular decision period, you'll hear back by mid-March. When we review your applications, we really do use a holistic review process. And what that means is we look at every aspect of your application, no matter what the circumstances are. So we start with your transcript and we look at how you challenge yourself academically, but we also do this by keeping in mind where you went to high school and what kind of opportunities you had, what kind of resources were at your disposal, and what kind of environment you went through when you were going through school. We accept both the ACT and the SAT, and we super score for both of those. And we have extended our test optional policy for this next year's application cycle. So if you're planning on applying this fall, you do have the option of submitting your test scores for our consideration. If you previously submitted a test score to us and you don't want that attached to your application, you can indicate that on your application, so don't sweat about that. Your application will also give you a variety of essay prompts that you can choose from for your first essay, but for your supplemental essay for Northwestern will always be the question, why Northwestern? And this essay really is your only opportunity to share your unique voice with the admissions staff. So use that space well. You have 350 words to talk about why Northwestern is a place for you and why it's a good fit for someone like you. What can you offer? And that's a great place to talk about that stuff. And then finally, we have letters of recommendation. So you want to make sure that your letters of recommendation are a positive and knowledgeable reflection of your skills. So Northwestern requires two. The first comes from a guidance counselor, and the second comes from a core subject teacher. So math, science, social studies, English, and world language are those. You do have the option of submitting more than two letters. So for example, if you had a really close relationship with a mentor or a coach of some kind, and you feel that their voice would benefit your application in some way, feel free to include a letter from them. However, it's important to keep in mind, like, quality or quantity, for sure, 2 letters is absolutely enough. In terms of paying for your education, be sure to fill out 2 different forms. The first is the free application for federal student aid, or more commonly known as the FAFSA. And second, the college scholarship service profile, which is the CSS profile. Now, Northwestern is dedicated to meeting 100% of need demonstrated by its students. And also, we are a need blind institution when considering domestic applicants, which means we don't consider your financial need when making an admissions decision. So that was a ton of information. And now that I've given you a ton of stuff to think about, I'm sure you have lots of questions. So we can get a start with our student panel on those. But be sure to keep dropping them in the chat below. First, I will start with Andy. And Andy, would you mind telling us what you like and dislike about the quarter system?
That is a great question. I think I was definitely nervous about the quarter system coming into Northwestern because I went to a high school, probably like many of you, that wasn't on the quarter system, but I've actually really enjoyed it. And I think there's a lot more pros than there are cons. I think the main pro is that you do get to take so many more classes than you would at other institutions. And like Hannah mentioned, with kind of the 6-school model, although I am in the School of Communication, I'm a theater major, like I mentioned earlier, I can take classes in any of those schools. And given the core system, it's not just taking one class in CESP or in Weinberg, it's taking so many classes in all of those. One class I like to talk about is an entrepreneurship class I'm currently in. I never thought I'd be taking a class in the McCormick School of Engineering when I came to Northwestern as a theater major. But because of the core system and the way that the school is set up, I've been able to do that. Obviously, one thing I don't like as much is that it definitely is a little bit more fast paced than I'm used to, or I was used to in high school. But again, I think the pros really outweigh the cons, and the professors and the TAs and other students are really here to help you as you make that adjustment from your typical semester high school to the course system at Northwestern.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Andy. Next, let's pass it over to Patryk. And Patryk, could you tell us what it's like to double major between schools? So for example, the School of Comm and Weinberg.
Yeah, so the way that double majoring works is that, I don't know, it's been a fantastic experience just in terms of I never thought that I would be able to study two disciplines that I had similar interests in. So, something like economics and RTVF, and something that Andy mentioned before, especially with the quarter system, it's also allowed for me to do this. I think that, majoring in two things, it seems like you would be on a massive time crunch, but I'm graduating on time and I've taken all the classes necessary for both of my majors. I really enjoyed it just because of the fact of how my week is structured, right? So I choose 4 classes for the quarter, and 2 of those classes can be insanely creative, something that I do in film, and others can be like math heavy in terms of economics. And I think that finding that balance is something that I have really appreciated, just because I've known that at least ever since I came here, that I still wanted to keep up that sort of love that I have for math, even though I'm not good enough to be a math major, but at the same time, still kind of pursuing those creative things that I really enjoyed, such as film and TV. So for me, it's been an overall great experience. And I think with so many students here, I believe it's over 70% of students at Northwestern actually study a second discipline. It kind of demonstrates that anybody and everybody can do it as long as you want to. So I really enjoyed my time with it.
Absolutely. Thanks, Patryk. Next, let's pass it to Maeve. And Maeve, could you tell us what life is like at Northwestern when it gets cold outside? Do activities and spirit die down at all?
That's a great question. I'm a good person to answer it too, especially coming from LA. I obviously had not experienced weather. It was actually a big part of the reason that I wanted to come to Northwestern, though. I really wanted to experience like just seasons, just anything but 60 degrees, which I don't know, it's definitely spoiled at home. But I think the adjustment is was a lot easier for me than I thought it would be. You really just need a big coat, you need some good boots, and lots of layering, and you'll get used to it. This winter, I'm in Evanston right now, is actually beautiful. We've had like more snow than I had the last 2 years. And I thought it was just gorgeous. As far as like how activities change, I think that they just kind of move indoors. People still go outside, people are still in student centers, people still go in the library. So I don't feel like the winter really changes as far as like the social experience here. But, I will say it's definitely, in general, seasonal depression is something we all face. But I think that as far as like the interactions with other students, it still keeps going. It's just a little bit more indoors during the winter months.
Absolutely. Thanks, Maeve. Next question, let's give it to Vishal. And Vishal, could you tell us, are most of your classes taught by professors or by TAs? And are most of your classes lecture-based or discussion-based classes?
Yeah, so actually all my classes that I've taken, I'm finishing my 8th quarter here at Northwestern. They've all been taught by professors, but I think all of them have had like multiple TAs, at minimum 1. And for me, it's a bit different to a lot of other students, given that I'm majoring in 3 STEM subjects. So a lot of my classes are more lecture based, but every week for all these classes, we do have like discussion sections with TAs, to ask specific questions, to get help, to discuss homework answers, and everything like that. But I know for a lot of other people, it might be the other way around. So it really depends on what you want to study, and it could, yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you. Next, let's pass it to Janea. And Janea, could you tell us about any academic support services on campus, like tutoring or writing centers? Does that kind of stuff exist at Northwestern?
Yeah, there are tons of options for academic support. I actually use the Writing Center pretty often. So it's really easy to use. The people who work there are some people who are undergrad students, graduate students, and so they're really accessible when going to meet with people at the Writing Center or at other kind of like tutoring centers. There are peer advised study groups. And so what that is you kind of like built into your class schedule, but it's just a chance to have like a more structured study time and review session with people who are in the same classes as you, and people you meet with a TA as well, so you can kind of have someone there who like really knows the answer and knows the material and is able to guide everyone through questions that they have. And there are also like study tables that happen. I know they happen in like a couple of residential halls certain days, and so you just get the chance to really talk about whatever questions you may have about the material. And the people who lead those study tables have taken the classes before. They're genuinely older students, but they've taken the class before and are pretty familiar with the material. And I'd say that those sort of resources are really accessible and also really easy, and something that a lot of students take advantage of. I mean, I've taken advantage of them often.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. Next question goes to Andy, and kind of going back to the professors versus TAs question. Do you feel like it's easy to have close relationships or develop those relationships with professors?
Yeah, that's a great question. Again, this is something that I was worried about. I probably, like many of you watching this, are students in high school that really like to have close relationships with their teachers. And especially if you go to a smaller high school, it's pretty easy to do that. And going to a school like Northwestern, sort of a mid-sized school, I was worried that I was just going to be a small fish in a really big pond of students. But because there is like a 6-to-1 student to teacher ratio, there are a lot more smaller classes than you would think. And there are a lot of opportunities to be close with your teachers. All teachers are required to have office hours. I think that's usually like 2 hours every week. But in my experience, every teacher has held way more free hours in the week, whenever kind of works for your schedule. Us Northwestern students always like to keep ourselves busy with classes and extracurriculars, so it can be hard to actually meet with the teacher during their assigned office hour time. But I've really been lucky to get to know the professors, and a lot of professors that I've had, even if I took a class with them my freshman fall, and now I'm almost at the end of my sophomore year, and I still stay in touch with them and kind of look to them for advice well beyond their class, which I really appreciate, and is a really special thing that I can take with me throughout the rest of my time at Northwestern.
Absolutely. Thanks, Andy. Next goes to Vishal again. And Vishal, could you tell us, were you able to take most of your first choice classes being in your third year? Have you taken most of your first choice classes? And also, how much time do students spend studying per week?
Great question. So with regards to the first question, I've actually been lucky enough to actually take all the classes that I've wanted to take. So there's a registration system where you get randomly allotted a time to register. So if you get lucky, you register earlier in the day. If you're a bit unlucky, you can register in the evening. But in the odd cases that I didn't get the class I wanted, if I just emailed the professor and explained why I wanted to take the class, they've always been willing to let me enroll, even if it was full. And so the time spent studying really varies from the period of the quarter. So obviously closer to midterms and finals, people spend a lot of time studying. The weekends might involve some studying. But then the weeks right after these exams are a lot more relaxed as classes are getting into newer content. So it really varies. I've never actually studied. I've never had to like pull an all-nighter, despite taking 5 classes every quarter for the past year now. So it's you can find a very good balance here despite the workload.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Next question goes to Patryk. And could you tell me, Patryk, is there a specific sports support system in advising for transfer students? Or what kind of opportunities do transfer students have for support?
Sure, yeah. So even though I myself am not a transfer student, I have had a lot of friends who have gone through that process. In terms of how transferring goes for students, one thing I have to mention is Wildcat Welcome. It's a fantastic resource, and basically that's our like week-long orientation that we have at the beginning of every quarter. And for transfer students, it's something very similar. So you're basically going to be assigned a peer advisor who is also a transfer student at coming into Northwestern, and they're going to take you through the exact same resources that first-year students will be taken through. So there you're going to get introduced to how to register for classes, what type of advising resources are there for you, what type of maybe mental health resources, sports, club sports, et cetera, are there for you as well. So I think that the whole purpose of that is really to introduce transfer students as if they are first-year students at Northwestern, just in a sophomore or junior standing. So really, I think for transfer students in general, there's no real fear as to like how you become acclimated, because you're basically in the same pool with everybody else who's starting off.
Absolutely. Thanks, Patryk. Next question, let's give it to Janea. And Janea, could you talk about how would you describe the community environment at Northwestern? And also, what's your favorite spot on campus?
Those are really great questions. I think there are a lot of different, like really small niche communities at Northwestern, but as a whole, like the community is pretty tight knit and will come together for whatever reasons, whether it's like some sort of like social justice related reason or just like wanting ice cream in the dining halls. And so I think those sorts of things are really, really exciting, really fun. And I've just really enjoyed being able to kind of like create my own communities and find where I kind of fit in the best. Not to say that, you know, it's like really hard to find communities and like hard to fit in at Northwestern, but I think just finding friends who share my interests or like the same music I do, those sorts of things have been really great for me. And it's something that honestly, I was able to find kind of like midway through my freshman year. So that was something that I've just like really enjoyed, like fostering those relationships within those communities. And I think a lot of that does have to do with where you spend time on campus. But I think my favorite spot on campus would have to be the Lakeville, like so many other people. But I think my spot on the Lakeville is like a lesser known spot. But there's like a little pathway behind Longfield along the Lakeville. And I just really like going out there because you can kind of get a good view of North Beach and a great view of Lake Michigan. And so just like hanging out there and like reading or just like taking like a like deep breath is something I really enjoy.
Thanks so much, Janea. And next, I'm going to give it to Maeve. And Maeve, could you talk about any kind of support services that are given to students in terms of career advancement?
Yeah, sure. We have a really great career advancement office, abbreviated NCA here at Northwestern. And I've actually used them a lot in my time here. I just recently this fall went through consulting recruitment for internships this coming summer. And NCA was really helpful for me. They, you know, you just sign up for appointments anytime, pretty much. They have appointments constantly with all their different advisors. And they're really helpful with reviewing your resume, giving you tips. They can also do mock interviews for you if you want to practice, you know, your interviewing skills. I think they also have some resources to help students get like business casual clothes or like interview appropriate clothes. So there's a ton of really great resources. I know they also have it by different NCA offices by school. So I obviously go to the Weinberg one, but I know like the School of McCormick has its very own NCA office that knows all about sort of like computer science recruitment and all different types of, you know, job cycles. Same with Kellogg, the School of Management. They also have their own career advancement department. So they're super helpful and they're a really great office if you just want to get some advice on looking for internships and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Thanks, Maeve. Next, let's pass it over to Andy. And Andy, could you talk, so your experience as a theater major in Northwestern's theater program, how intense is the theater program?
Yeah, so obviously one of the main reasons that I came to Northwestern was because of the theater program. I actually did the summer after my junior year in high school, I did a theater program at Northwestern called Cherubs. Maybe some of you that are watching did Cherubs for theater or for journalism. Really great program and really made me fall in love with the school. And I don't think intense is a word that I would use to describe the theater program here. I think it's everything that I've wanted it to be and more, and I've really gotten so much out of my education, but I think the community here is so warm and welcoming. Because the theater program each year, there's an average of around 100 students in the program. Because it is really small, you really get to know the other students in the program, and everyone just wants to be friends with everyone else and kind of work collaboratively. And some of the coolest stories of things you hear at Northwestern, people coming together outside of class to write a play together, start a band together, do all these things in the arts together rather than alone. Obviously, the arts can be a really competitive industry, but I don't think that competition really exists at Northwestern.
That's a great answer. Thanks, Andy. Next, let's pass it to Vishal. And Vishal, could you talk about so this person is talking about how she applied as a math major. So is the math department working on any interesting research right now that you know of?
Yeah, so I'm actually a recently declared math major. It was the third major that I declared maybe 2 quarters ago. But I took a class I'm taking a class currently, financial models and mathematics. So it's a lot about like options pricing and options theory. And I know that the professor actually comes from a pure math background, but he's been, moving more into finance math research. And he's working on really interesting research regarding a more like a better model for options pricing than the current model that exists. It's been around for like 30, 40 years now. So like that's just like one example of like interesting research that professors do. Another class I'm taking currently is about probability and Markov chains and all of that stuff. And the professor is again working on a theory to find a more effective, like faster solution to solve like a particular type of probability question. So every professor has their own like small niche in the math department, and they can be extremely, extremely specific. But they're like, if you go on the website right now, you can see maybe 15, 20 undergrad research opportunities in the math department, ranging from every possible math topic you can think of.
Awesome. And very related to that, I'm going to pass it really quickly back to Andy. And Andy, could you talk about any undergraduate research opportunities in the social sciences?
Yeah, so Northwestern actually allocates $3.5 million for research every year, which is an insane amount of money. And research can really mean so many different things. So while there are research opportunities for students interested in sciences who want to wear that white lab coat, use those test tubes, there is that. But research can actually involve all of the fields across the 6 different schools. So some research opportunities I like to highlight are the undergraduate research grant, which is kind of if you have your own project you want to work on, you can either apply for a grant to get $1,000 for a quarter or $3,500 for the summer. And actually 2 of my friends, Theo and Lorenzo, last summer applied for this grant and actually researched and wrote their own original musical that was produced at Northwestern this quarter. So again, not something you would think of as research, but the Northwestern counted that as research and they did it. Another is if you don't have your own project but still want to get involved in research, we have the undergraduate research assistance program. So that's an opportunity for students who want to be a paid research assistant, but who lack kind of maybe any formal research experience prior to coming to Northwestern. And the coolest opportunity is the Circumnavigators grant, and that's given to one lucky student every year. And this student goes through kind of a rigorous application process. I think that happens in the fall. And for 10 weeks, they get to visit at least 5 different countries on at least 3 different continents, researching a topic of their choice. So they basically get to travel the world, studying whatever they want for a summer. And again, that's given to one Northwestern student. So I think Northwestern is a research institution, really values students to do research in whatever they're most passionate about.
Absolutely. And I think the coolest story I've heard is someone taking a grant and going to writing a paper on music and millennials and just going to music festivals for a whole summer. So you can get creative with that stuff. That's really awesome. Next, let's pass it to Janea. And Janea, as far as career readiness goes, what are some undergrad opportunities for internships or employment? And what does it look like to have an internship as a student?
Yeah, there are a lot of options to have internship opportunities built into your kind of like your major program. So for me, I am a journalism major, and within that we have our journalism residency, which kind of touched on before, but it's essentially a quarter where you go work for a publication. So it's essentially an internship, but it's during the school year, so you aren't really kind of like missing out on any academics since you are getting credit for it. There's also the Chicago Field Studies, which anyone can do. It's not like specific to any school. And so that's a similar format, and you kind of spend a quarter working for an organization or a company in Chicago that kind of aligns with some of your similar goals. And I know a couple people who have done CFS and have really enjoyed their experiences there as well. But even outside of things that are built into the, like things that are kind of like built into the academic school year, there are a lot of opportunities that like a lot of opportunities for summer internships and a lot of opportunities that do come through Northwestern. And so for me, being a journalism major, I've had the opportunity to interview directly with recruiters for newspapers and magazines because they come to Northwestern just for, like, they come to campus just to kind of get to know our students better, which is a really great opportunity. And kind of like what Maeve was saying earlier, but the Northwestern career advancement. So that office, NCA, is just a really great resource and something that I use often. And I think they do a really good job at helping students find internships that kind of that align with their values and with their skills. And it's something that, like, I've taken advantage of and will continue to take advantage of until I graduate.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. There's so many options, and Janea could have gone on for 30 more minutes about all the stuff that you can do. So absolutely. Next question goes to Maeve, kind of related to the stuff we've been talking about. You have so many options and you want to take advantage of everything. So as a busy student, how possible is it to balance those things? Can you be involved in clubs and have a job or internship and still have a social life? Do you have time for things outside of class?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think one that a lot of first year students at Northwestern learn how to manage on their own pretty quickly. I'd say one thing that I really love about Northwestern is that all of our students are so involved. Everyone's double majoring, like we've been talking about, involved in a million clubs, and, you know, also pursuing career opportunities and research and whatnot. And so it definitely is, you know, a learning curve. It's different from probably what you have been used to in high school, where your days are kind of planned out. You're kind of on your own to time manage. But I'd say it's definitely very manageable. I think each person has to sort of figure out on their own what balance works for them. Personally, my freshman year, I sort of took my first fall, and I didn't join a ton of organizations. I just kind of wanted to get like my academic situation figured out first, and that really worked for me. But, you know, a lot of other people just jump right in and then sort of adjust as they go along. But it's definitely manageable. I think that something that's great about the quarter system and just the way things are set up here at Northwestern is that we can do so many things. You don't really have to shy away from anything that you're interested in for like lack of time or, you know, lack of sort of possibility. I think that you really can do whatever you want as long as you, you know, figure out how to manage it for yourself and find a way that works for you.
Absolutely. That's some great advice. So I hope you guys were listening to that. So next, let's pass it back to Janea. And I would love to talk about, how would you describe the Northwestern student body?
That's a great question. I think the Northwestern student body is full of so many different types of people from all over the world. And it's honestly very diverse in terms of ideas and ideologies, and even when it comes to like race and ethnicity. There are a lot of people who are just really passionate about so many different things. And I think that's one of the words that I think a lot about when I think about Northwestern students. Just like, everyone has so many different interests, and there are a lot of like different things that people are studying or want to go into, but I think everyone is just really passionate about it. And I think that's one of the things that kind of like brings the student body together and kind of connects everyone, because I don't know how much I would have in common with, I don't know, someone who does a lot of math, but I think just how passionate we are about what we study is what kind of like keeps the student body connected, and when like everyone can relate to each other because of that.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. And next, I'm going to pass it back to Maeve, actually. And could you talk a little bit more about the campus culture in terms of, is campus very competitive or is it supportive among students?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's one that I was personally worried about just going into college after you sort of like finish this highly competitive process to get into a school and then you finally go. And a big fear I had was that sort of competitive energy would follow me into, like highly academic school. And that's not what I found here at Northwestern. I find that our community is incredibly supportive. I think in some of my hardest classes are usually where I make the best friends because we sort of struggle together. We have late nights in, core in the library together. And that's, you sort of become friends in the struggle, I guess. But I think in general, like Janea was saying, everyone here is just so passionate about their own thing, and that's just such like a great energy to have around. I think that everyone is very supportive and very interested in what other people are doing, but not definitely not in a competitive way. I think, and I know Andy was touching on this too, with the theater department, and I've gone through it with like sort of internship recruiting and stuff too. I just think in general, everyone's just excited to hear about what other people are doing and looking to support over being competitive for sure.
Absolutely. Thanks for that answer. Next, let's pass it to Patryk. And Patryk, is there a prominent LGBTQ community on campus? And what kinds of resources exist for LGBTQ students?
Yes, there is. And in terms of resources that are available, the first thing that comes to mind is also actually during Wildcat Welcome, which is hosted by Rainbow Alliance. And it's basically a bonfire that happens on our Lakeville, where all students from all ages are basically just welcome to kind of like talk about their experiences of being a part of the LGBTQ community. And then other sort of resources that are also available. At Source, there's the Gender and Sexualities Resource Center, which they're actually petitioning to take out of Norris and kind of create a bigger space for people. But basically the whole thing is that, it's an open door policy. So anybody that wants to chat about anything, it doesn't necessarily have to be about, say, your gender or sexuality, really about anything that you want to chat about, then you are more than welcome to be there. But in terms of other resources, I think it's just like the community aspect of it. Everyone's insanely supportive of, say, like whatever sexuality you identify with. And nobody, I don't feel like that I at least know of, has run into any sort of troubles with those types of things at Northwestern. And everybody is just kind of, it's a very progressive school in general. And I think that people are very just kind of like open to obviously being themselves and throughout the 4 years that they're there.
Absolutely. Next, let's talk about Greek life. So Vishal, could you talk about how big of a role the Greek life plays on campus currently?
Yeah, sure. So I was a member of Greek life in my first 2 years here, but I mean the short answer is that it really plays not the biggest role on campus. But that being said, there is a community of people who are involved in Greek life if that's something that you're interested in. But a lot of my friends weren't members of Greek life, and they had as great of a social life. They could do like everything that members of Greek life could do. So people can join Greek life for various reasons, whether it's to make friends or to do like certain activities. But like I don't think it's a necessity by any means. If you would like to join and you seek some sort of a Greek life community, then it's there for you. But I, for instance, didn't I kind of got what I wanted out of it in my first 2 years, and now I have a social life outside of it. So it's very flexible.
Absolutely. Thank you. Next, let's pass it to Janea again. And Janea, could you talk about the advantages associated with being involved in Northwestern's Alumni Network? Have you seen any advantages in that department?
Yeah, I think Northwestern's Alumni Network loves to do things with current students, loves to be involved. And so I'm actually a part of the Alumni Network's Affinity Mentorship Program. And this is like one of the first times they've done it. And so essentially you are paired with a mentor who is also a Northwestern alum, and you are paired based on affinities that you share, whether it's like race, gender, sexuality, those sorts of things. And you're also matched based on the careers that you've chosen. And I think they did a fantastic job in matching me, at least. I really love my mentor, and I think it's just really awesome to have that opportunity to talk with an alum about how their Northwestern experience has impacted the work that they're doing like today, and like things they kind of wish they would have done differently. It's just really interesting for me to have the opportunity now before I graduate.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. Next question. Let's pass it to Andy. And Andy, could you talk about what are sports like at Northwestern? Is there a lot of school spirit?
Yeah, and I know this might be surprising that the theater major is answering this, but I think that speaks to a lot of the fact that there is school spirit across the campus. That's something that I was really looking for. And I think Northwestern is exactly the place for that. We are an NCAA Division I athletic institution and a founding member of the Big Ten, and we're actually the only private school in the Big Ten Conference. And one thing that is great about Northwestern is our students love to rally behind our Wildcats, and that goes across all sports and all seasons. And we get actually free access to home varsity events with our student IDs, our wild cards, which is really great. You don't have to pay for anything. I know me and my friends, when the pandemic wasn't occurring, loved to go to the football games, loved to go to the basketball games. It was just a really fun experience and just kind of a way to take a break from all of our extracurriculars or our studying. One of my favorite memories was actually during Wildcat Welcome, which Patryk was talking about earlier, that week-long orientation. All of the new first year and transfer students actually get to run across the football field before the first home game. So that's a really fun memory I have. But aside from that part of the athletics, there are also opportunities for students who are not on those teams to continue to be involved in athletics. Maybe you're on a varsity team in high school and you still kind of want to play the sport. So there are club teams, over 30 club sports that happen in the fall, winter, and spring. There's also intramural teams, and that's a lot more laid back and casual if you're interested in just kind of like playing around with basketball or playing some tennis with friends, and not as much of commitment. Also, if you don't even want to do that, even less of a commitment. We also have 2 different gyms on campus. My favorite, we like to call SPAC, the Henry Crown Sports Pavilion. And that has a variety of workout classes, which is really cool. So there's like spin classes, there's high intensity interval training classes, as well as your typical treadmills, weights you can use kind of at any time. And those gyms are open to all students, basically kind of like all hours of the day.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, the sports community and the passion that students have for our Wildcats is really, really cool. And also, I want to point out what he said again about Northwestern students get free admission to all Big Ten games and all sports. And that's really special. That's something that's really cool. And no other Big Ten university does that. So that's really, really awesome. Next, let's pass it to Maeve. And could you talk about what your favorite NU tradition is?
Yeah, actually my favorite Northwestern tradition, I think, is a lot of people's favorite. It's Armadillo Day, which happens every year. We call it Dillo Day for short. It happens every year at the end of our spring quarter in June. And it's an entirely student-run music festival that happens on our Lakeville. The president of our school actually closes down our libraries for that day, so that actually every student is meant to go and have like just a day of total fun. It happens before reading week, so like a week before our final exams, and it's super fun. It's run by a student group called Maeve, which is one of our larger student groups on campus, and it's actually, I think, the largest student-run music festival in the country. It's super fun. We've had a lot of great artists. Last year we had my freshman year, we had Dia, Hippocampus, and I think ASAP Ferg too. We also had it last year virtually. We had some cool artists there too, like Rico Nasty. And I'm crossing my fingers I'm not sure about this upcoming Dillo, but maybe my senior year, hopefully we can have a wonderful in-person vaccinated Dillo. But that's just one of my favorite traditions. I think it's really fun, and it's a great way to hear music for free as students. I'll just mention maybe one other tradition I also really like, that's kind of a year-round thing, is the Rock. It's a rock that we have sort of on the southern end of our campus. It used to be a fountain And then it has a sort of history where one class painted it. And then for now, it's our testament to free speech, basically. Any student can paint the rock at any time. There's a couple rules that follow it. You have to guard it at night, I think, or you have to guard it for 24 hours, I think, at night. And then you have to paint it in the dead of night, because that's sort of the history of it. But it's really fun. Student groups paint it. You can just paint it with your friends. I have not painted it yet, but it's definitely on my Northwestern bucket list. But people paint it year round. In the winter, people set up tents, and it's super fun. There's also a live cam. So right now I think you can go on the website and see what's painted on the rock. But yeah, those are some of my favorite NU traditions.
Absolutely. I don't think I'm metal enough to stay outside all night and paint the rock, but I have seen, it's really interesting to just see what people put on there. I think my favorite one recently was the Bernie meme from a few weeks ago, so that was pretty cool. So next, let's take a step back, and we're going to talk a little bit about entrepreneurship. So Patryk, could you tell us a little bit about what kind of opportunities exist for students who are interested in innovation and entrepreneurship on campus?
Totally. So one massive and very important sort of center that we have for innovation at Northwestern is within the Henry Crown Sports Pavilion, and on the second floor, it's called the Garage. And it's a great place for anybody who's interested in being an entrepreneur, and basically just the main support system that you'll get in terms of advisors and other students who are trying to, start their own businesses as well. So we have a very famous business that came out of here that's called Brew Bike. And that's where it kind of all started with Lucas Phillips just a few years ago. But the Garage was really the hub for Brew Bike itself. And so even when I worked for the company, that's kind of where we had our meetings and where Lucas mainly spent most of his time. But besides the Garage, I know that Studio 22, the film board that I'm a part of, innovation can come in very different ways. It doesn't necessarily have to be something that's tech focused. And I know that with Studio 22 and the Multicultural Filmmakers Collective and NUFA, which is mainly a film board compromise for female identifying people. So basically, it's just kind of we distribute grants, and you have a chance to make your own films. And I've had the chance to produce about 3 or 4 films during my time here at Northwestern. And I know students who have done way more than I have. But it's a great opportunity for, if you want to be a filmmaker, to kind of utilize this time to learn how to make a movie, what's the process like, how to work with people while you're making one. So yeah, that's just sort of another place you can find innovation. Doesn't have to all be tech, I promise.
Absolutely. Thanks, Patryk. And just to close us out today, we like to end these panels with by asking everyone the same question that you'll be answering if you choose to apply to Northwestern this fall or in the future. So that question is, why Northwestern? Let's start with Andy.
Yeah, it's crazy because I actually reread my Why Northwestern at the beginning of this year, and a lot of it still stays true. And I think this sounds cheesy, but I think the tagline that Northwestern uses, "and is in our DNA," actually really speaks to why I chose Northwestern, was because of that balance. As a theater major, I'm obviously very interested in theater and want to pursue a career in theater, but I was also something that was important to me and my family was getting a broad liberal arts education. And there are only so many schools where I could get kind of that top-notch theater education and education in other disciplines. So that was something that was really big about why Northwestern, in addition to the fact that you are located in a perfect college town of Evanston with access to downtown Chicago. As someone from New York City, I couldn't be too far away from a big city that has a lot of things to do with museums and concerts and restaurants. So I think all of that together just kind of was like the perfect package for me. And I applied early decision, and there's not a day I regret it. And I'm so thankful to be here.
All right, let's pass it to Maeve.
Yeah, I think similar to Andy, my why Northwestern, I mean, it just checked off all of my boxes. I thought it was the perfect size. I loved that it was a top 10 school. I loved that we were near a city, but not in one. Like I said, I loved that there was a little bit of weather, some seasons for me to experience. But I think that since coming to Northwestern and being here, my favorite part has been kind of what we touched on earlier, honestly, but really just the community and the way that all of our students are so motivated and doing a bunch of different things. And, but at the same time, we make time to have a social life. We have fun here. I feel like Northwestern has a really good balance between sort of like the work hard, play hard. And that was something that was also really important to me when looking at schools, was that I could, really have a fun college experience while also pursuing all of my academic and sort of career interests. So yeah, I think that my why Northwestern has really just been that balance in the community.
All right. Next, Janea.
Yeah, I really love the versatility that Northwestern offers. Before coming to college, I knew that I wanted to double major. I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to double major in, but I've always had sort of like a more creative liberal arts interest while also really enjoying science. And so I really like having the chance to kind of put both of my interests together and not having to decide whether I am only going to focus on writing or whether I was going to like study biology. And so that was a big question that I had when I came to choosing a college, was whether I would like, if I would have to give up any of my interests. And at Northwestern, I didn't have to do that. I don't have to give up any of my interests. And since coming here, I've also had more interests up here. So I just really love all the opportunities to kind of explore things that I'm already really interested in and to get to learn more. And I feel like I'm constantly learning new things and finding new opportunities. And I just love that experience here.
Absolutely. Thanks, Janea. Next, Vishal.
Yeah, so I mean, coming from Hong Kong, it was a little bit of a difficult decision to, come to America to study. But interestingly enough, I was touring a bunch of universities, and then Northwestern was my last stop on this tour. And then so I went to the student center that afternoon to meet up with someone I knew at Northwestern. But I just thought it was really crazy how passionate everyone was about like the things they were doing. So sitting next to me, I distinctly remember seeing two kids like doing this like incredibly difficult, like to what I can imagine, econ problem set. But then to my left was someone like rehearsing some lines for some theater thing they had going. And I just thought it was really crazy how everyone here just like loves what they're doing. And on top of that, it was a great campus. It was like located next to Chicago. I'd never been there. So like the combination of all of that, but most importantly, like everyone here is very driven and very very passionate in something or another, which is the best part of Northwestern, in my opinion.
All right. And you want to close us out, Patryk?
Totally. So my Northwestern statement changed a lot over these last few years. I actually came in as a biomedical engineering student, wanted to be a doctor. That changed real fast. So I think that in terms of how it's changed, it's really kind of my why Northwestern is now is like this school is great at everything. Like it's actually kind of shocking to me how whatever major you choose, whatever student organization you want to be a part of, it's just hands down one of the best schools in the country for it. So the fact that I was able to transition out of wanting to be a doctor to now making movies and studying economics, and I'm still somehow in the best programs in the country, that's kind of crazy to me. And just in terms of everything else, it's like what other school is going to put on like the biggest produced student music festival in the country? Like that's just kind of bonkers, right? So I think that being around so many people who are one very career oriented, but at the same time just love being a leader, but like know how teamwork works as well. It's been an incredible experience to like mature and kind of like also find my own path amongst my friends. So I think it's changed a lot, but it's even better now, I think.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you all so much for joining us today and sharing your experiences. And thank you to our audience for tuning in. If you did like what you saw today, the best thing you can do is subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Instagram, or you can follow us on our brand new admissions TikTok. All those are at Northwestern Admissions to stay updated. If you have any questions or ideas about how we can be helping you in your remote college search, feel free to email us at ug-admissions@northwestern.edu. Thanks again for listening, and we hope you're staying safe and well. Go Cats.